This is the final Chamber Council of 2023. Exchange Bank, y'all are always awesome in your support of the Chamber. We are always thankful for all that you do here at the Chamber and for doing now, this is the third of a three-part series that Chamber Council offers under the Finance and Administration end that Exchange Bank will be doing, and it is on protecting your business from check fraud. Andrea Roberg, she was here the last time, did such a great job that Catherine ended up saying, you gotta go for round two. You got to. But we're bringing in the big guns. He is the best public speaker that Exchange has to offer, that's Chris Ray. They're gonna do a phenomenal job, and then we'll take your questions afterwards. So without further ado, here is Chris and Andrea.
But no, my name is Chris. This is Andrea, and Andrea's going to do most of the talking during the presentation. I'm just going to kind of come up here, give a little introduction. And the question I have to you is, do you or somebody you know have check fraud in the last 12 months? And I see some heads nodding. I mean, it's rampant. It's rampant, and Andrea's going to go through some of the common and more frequent recent trends in check fraud and why we're seeing so much of it around here. More so than other places in the country. And I think this is a great topic to be discussing with business owners specifically because we still do a lot of checks. And what you'll see is there are alternatives to that, and people are starting to have to use that just for safety reasons. But anyway, I'll send it over to Andrea.
Okay. All right, so like I said, we're going to be doing check fraud. And first I'm going to go over just some statistics. The check use went down 82% over the last 30 years. So less and less people are actually writing checks, mailing checks. But check fraud has nearly doubled from 2021 to 2022. And we have 680,000 reports of check fraud. And that's only those that have been reported. Experts predict that the total check fraud will hit $24 billion in losses in 2023, twice the amount it was in just 5 years ago. So check usage is down, fraud is up. Okay, so why has the check fraud increased? It's because of opportunity. It's a low-tech, easy-to-pull-off crime, and there's still plenty of people out there that's still mailing checks. Okay, so how are the checks being stolen? Well, individuals and organized criminals, they're going around and they're stealing checks from residential mailboxes, the blue UPS, U.S. Postal Service drop-off boxes, and they're actually they're robbing the mail carriers. There's been a big uptick on actually robbing the mail carriers. The criminals are also enlisting employees within the Postal Service to steal the checks. So I don't know if you've heard, but just in the last year, there's been postal workers being arrested in Atlanta, postal workers being arrested in Mobile. So this was like from Mobile. October. This just happened in October. 2 people, including a former postal worker, admitted to a scheme to steal millions of dollars worth of business checks through the mail over a 3-month period. The checks were sold online on the dark web. The value of those checks posted for sale exceeded $17.7 million. Okay. One of the things that is making it more difficult to police the Postal Service is the fact is that the postal police staffing has shrunk by 65% since 2002. So when postal crime and the robberies of mail carriers are at an all-time high, the postal police force has actually shrunk to approximately 350 officers. That's throughout the whole U.S. So we have less than 7 people policing the Postal Service per state. And you want to know how bad it is in our area as opposed to other areas? The top 3 states that have the most stolen checks for sale on the dark web, number 1 is New York, number 2 is District of Columbia, and number 3 is Alabama. So you may think that, oh, we're from little small Alabama, we're in the South and all that kind of stuff. We are number 3 as far as checks that's for sale on the dark web right now. The types of check theft fraud, this is basically the most that we're seeing. There's all different kinds of ways to do it, but just kind of went over what we are seeing at the bank. We've seen since June, I think I have focused about half of my time of what I normally do during the week working on something related to check fraud or learning about it. We've got check washing. And what check washing is where they steal a check and then they use chemicals and they wash the payee and sometimes even the check amount off of the check and then they print over it. And you think, oh, it's a special chemical or anything like that. No, it's nail polish remover. Check cooking, that's where a check is scanned and software is used to alter it before printing a counterfeit check. Check forgery is where criminals use stolen or blank checks. And they can just print their own check and then they just forge a signature. So they've stolen a check. Now they've got what your check looks like. They've got your routing number. They've got your account number. They know what the signature looks like and they just print a check and kind of make it as close to it as they can. Okay, and then a newer one that we've been seeing is forged check endorsement. And that's just basically taking the check as is and they just forge it. They just write an endorsement on the back and then they either cash it or deposit the check. What they're doing is most of these that what we're seeing now, we're seeing a lot of the forged check endorsements, and basically most of what we've seen on the check fraud is being deposited through mobile deposit. So it's usually with some big corporate bank. So they go and they get a fraudulent account, get somebody's identity, and then they go and set up a fraudulent account. They steal y'all's checks, and then they just go over there and they just write on the back of it, and it doesn't even have to match what's on the front of it. And they're doing it mobily, and nobody's checking it at the big banks, and it's going through. Okay, so how can you prevent check fraud? Number 1 is get away from checks. There's a lot of things that you can pay now by electronic. Do it electronically through a bill pay service, or you can do it through ACH. Also, depending on where it is, if, a lot of companies now, you can go on their website and actually pay. Now, by ACH, that would be also sent in electronically. Either you could initiate it or you could talk to the company and see if they have the capabilities of ACH. Okay, if you must mail a check, drop your mail inside the post office. As far as the blue mailboxes outside the Postal Service, they've been having issues with the keys being stolen from those. And basically, crooks are going in, using those stolen or duplicated keys, opening up and taking everything in it. They are looking primarily for business checks. They're not looking for personal checks that much. They are looking for business checks because they're thinking that businesses have more money in their checking account than most individuals. So it's they can steal more. Okay, go back. I went through. When mailing your checks, don't use the Windows envelopes. Don't advertise that it's coming from a business. So what they're doing is the lady that was in Mobile that got arrested, what she was doing, she actually worked in one of the postal service inside a building, and when she would come through sorting, and she would see a business, anything from a business, especially if it was window envelope, because you could see a lot of times it would say paid to the order. She knew it was a check. So she would go, at that point, she would go and take it, put it underneath her shirt, and then she left with those checks underneath her shirts. Okay, you also need to monitor your accounts daily. We've got a lot of people who they only look at their statements and everything once a month. And with this kind of stuff, especially if they don't change anything on the check, you see that check clearing and you think everything is okay. And a lot of times you don't even know it until you get a call from your vendor saying, hey, I didn't get paid for this. And then you're going back months later and you're like, oh my goodness, no, I checked my statement, it paid. Then when you go looking at it, you realize somebody had stolen your check. Well, unfortunately, by that time, that money is gone out of that account. So the best way to handle it is know exactly when it's hitting, so you can immediately try to return that. Okay, so there are services that can help detect check fraud. One of them is Positive Pay, and we offer Positive Pay. It's a system that checks the amounts, the date, the check number to identify possible fraud. So the business, they actually upload a check file. And then on that check file, you would have the information on that, you know, the check amount, the date, the check number. When that actually comes in and comes in through cash letter, hits the account, it will actually look at it. If there's anything that's different than what was on that list, then it will give you an exception file. And on that exception file, then you look at the exception file daily and you decide whether to pay or reject it. Another thing is the pay Positive Pay. It's the same thing as a Positive Pay, but it also includes the payee. Okay. Also, we have this is something new. Dark web monitoring. Right now, like I said, this has really started hitting our area since June. So the criminals are changing their tactics as fast as we can put things in place to protect, to flag those. So now that we're looking at it, Positive Pay is a good thing, but it doesn't catch everything. Payee Positive Pay is a good thing, but it's not catching everything. So that's when they changed over to changing the endorsement on the back of it, because Positive Pay or Payee Positive Pay is not going to catch that. So we're looking at different things. We're working with the Fed right now, trying to get reports that would show the front and the back of the check, so that way we have that available for our customers. We've just signed a contract that we are going to start doing dark web monitoring. It's a service that looks for our bank routing number and our card bands that's being sold on the dark web. So we're actually trying to find it as soon as it goes for sale on the dark web, so that way we can be proactive and we can actually help you with your accounts before you actually start seeing the fraudulent checks. We're also looking at a check recognition service, and what it does is it uses artificial intelligence to look at all the areas of the check to look for discrepancies, much like facial recognition software. And so that's another thing. Those two things are going together with us, and we'll be going live with that in probably about 60 days. The check recognition system, what it does, it goes out and it looks at the check. It looks at this, it goes and it learns a history of your behavior. It looks to see what the checks that you've issued before. It knows who's the signer on the checks. It knows what every check looks like. It knows if you print uppercase and lowercase. It knows if you put the date, if you do the date in numerical. It knows if you usually write the date out written. It will go and flag anything unusual on that check. It looks at all points. It looks at the size of the check. It looks at the borders of the check. So it's just like recognizing a face. If there's anything that's odd, it's going to flag that as an exception. And then that way, that would be on our side, and we would be able to know, hey, we got a fraudulent check as soon as it comes into us. And like I said, right now, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to actually start seeing some check fraud.
Let me make a couple of comments before we do Q&A, just to make sure, because I know I heard some things that people may not completely understand, just for clarity. Payee, just so we know what that is, that's the person you send the check to. So when we said Positive Pay was checking everything, if I wrote a check to Andrea for $100 and then put it in the mail and it got intercepted and was turned around and washed, and it may say Philip's name on it, Philip goes in to cash the check or deposit to his account, that system would have not called it if every other item was correct except the person I wrote the check to. So the Payee Positive Pay takes it to the step where it checks that field as well. Yeah,
since this started in June, we started off with regular Positive Pay. Then suddenly we started seeing the check washing, where they would actually go and change the payee name, but everything else would be the same. So then you start looking at getting Payee Positive Pay. Then you find out, okay, they've got to work around this now. Now they're doing the endorsement fraud. So now you need a system that actually checks for the endorsements on the back of it as well. So that's why it is constantly evolving. As we are putting systems out there to try to catch it on our side, the criminals, this is their full-time job. Full-time job. And what they're doing is they're finding workarounds to get around us.
As banking and the financial industry evolves, where you're doing more things with your phone and everything's a lot easier, and people talk about the phone is the branch. Well, there's trade-offs with that, and like we said, like Andrea said, a lot of the things that we see is generally this fraud is these checks are deposited to a larger corporate bank that has doing business throughout the country, and their risk profile and their risk tolerance levels are such where they'll let people open up accounts completely online without seeing them face to face, deposit large checks. We're not talking about $1,000 checks, we're talking large checks.
$40,000 checks.
Yeah, deposit. We had a 40. Yeah, 40, did you say 40,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a $40,000+ check deposit through your mobile bank out. Yeah, so that's the thing that's concerning us, because when that check comes through your account in our bank, the perception could be that what did we do wrong? Well, the transaction did not incur at our bank. It incurred somewhere else, and it's come posting on our bank. So we'll do what we can for the customer to return that check, get it back, but it's not guaranteed. And so a lot of the things that are out there right now are measures that are reactionary. Mm-hmm. You know, we're identifying it, but we're still identifying after it occurs. And so that's why we've taken a choice to kind of focus more on the dark web monitoring, because that's where they're buying information to use, and they may use it, you know, next week. They may use it in a year from now. So that's why we're trying to approach it from a more aggressive angle. Mm-hmm. And that way, if you had your financial institution call you and say, hey, you need to close your account. If you've got a business account, that's very difficult to do. You've got so many things coming and going. And we tell our customers, hey, you had a check washed, fraudulent check, we got your money back, everything's good, but you need to close your account. They're going, gosh, I don't really want to. Mm-mm. I think if we had the support to say, Mr. So-and-so, you need to close your account because here's where it is for selling dark web. I think that provides more support for the customer to understand that.
And just because they've washed your check and that's been deposited, they've still got your account number and your routing number for sale. And it can go, it's not for sale to just one person. It's for sale to as many people who want it. So, and one of the things that y'all need to be looking for, when you're looking at your accounts, if you see any small, like little pings on your account for like 10 cents, $1.20, those little the little micro deposits, that's them testing to make sure it's a good account. So you may think, oh, it's just a small amount, you know, whatever, it's not going to be a big deal. It goes on, it falls off, whatever. They're checking your account to see if it's a value, because that's one of the things, the criteria. The organized criminals, they have to make sure it's a good account before they pay the money for it. Yeah, we saw accounts that actually were closed back in the spring that was still for sale, and that was last month that we saw it.
And, you know, it was interesting to me to learn that Alabama was number 3 on the most popular places. You start to wonder why. And part of it could be our relation to Atlanta, how close we are, and it's easier for the people to come over here to do those transactions. And like Andrea said, we saw one of our customers here in Gadsden, who has their mail picked up at their place of business, and it literally looked like somebody took the envelope, ripped it open, got their iPhone, took a picture of the check, and then uploaded it instantly for sale. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of scary.
It's very scary. But like I said, you know, if you can pay anything electronically, used to be that we were concerned about ACH fraud as opposed to check fraud, because check fraud was non-existent almost. I mean, it had gotten to the point where you would see little local things. You didn't see organized criminals going after checks. Now you're saying that is organized criminals. And most of this stuff where it's being sold, it's like Russia. You know, and they're constantly changing their IPs and all this, and you don't know, they can't hunt them down. They can't hunt them down, but these are people from other countries that are actually, once it goes out for sale, they're doing this. And
this is not just a Gadsden, Alabama thing. We've talked about this. Regionally, it's pretty heavy, but it's everywhere. And it's interesting to talk to other people throughout the country that maybe in connection with the post office that might have, you know, familiar relationships and are more honest with them. And some of these people have said, no, our blue box, our employee got paid by Brant to give them the key to the blue box. When we say blue box, we're talking about the blue post office box sitting outside. So it's a big deal, and it's a lot more professional than we think. And going back to what Andrew said, best practices, a vanilla envelope, not anything descriptive on it. But also moving to ACH and so forth. Now fraudsters are smart, so they'll figure out a way to on the ACH side. So that's why we're trying to take an approach to at the end of the day, they're selling information illegally. So if we can identify who of our customers have their information being for sale illegally, then we think that might help mitigate ACH check and whatever fraud we may have.
And then, we said most of these checks are being deposited, mobile deposit. With Exchange Bank, we actually have somebody that looks at every single check that's being mobily deposited. And we have limitations on it too. So we've got things in place to mitigate our risk, mitigate our customers' risk. And you'll probably start seeing some of the larger banks start implementing this. There's one that's basically, there was articles written out in, I'm not going to say who, because they have a presence right here in Etowah County, but they have lost a ton of money through these check fraud schemes. Luckily, we've been on the better side of it, but we are monitoring like crazy. And like I said, since June, I think this has been my part-time job. I do other things as well, but it just seems like every time I turn around, I'm doing another seminar, we're looking at another project to implement something else. We've looked at everything we can to try to keep our customers safe.
Well, we appreciate y'all's time. I hope this was helpful to you all. It is something that everybody's experiencing. This is kind of giving you an idea of what we at Exchange are looking at to do for our customers. So we appreciate your time. And thank you.